Hi, everybody. Okay, so I am Ivy. Um, I am a graduate of Brooklyn College, as well as a current student at the Graduate Center. And I am so excited to be with you guys today to talk about, how to be a participant in a Zoom, as well as um, how to um, host a Zoom. So I've done a bunch of events, especially for the Women's Center. And so I'm going to kind of explain how those kind of things work, as well as how you can be a good participant in a Zoom. So a little bit about me. As you know, I'm a Brooklyn College graduate. I'm currently studying at the Graduate Center for Women and Gender Studies. I have been hosting events in person before the pandemic, and then moved over to Zoom while the pandemic was happening. And I've come to really appreciate Zoom. And Zoom, I'm sure we're all like sick of Zoom in a way, from it being like part of all of our classes and having to log on. But there's a lot more to it that uh, I'm going to show you today. So first, I'm going to talk a little bit about the how to be a good participant in a Zoom. So firstly, I'm actually just going to talk about framing yourself. So obviously, depending on your situation, you may or may not have access to great framing. But as you can see here, I'm going to lead by example. I am kind of in the center of the screen. I'm sitting up straight. I You can see from right, not like, I guess, my collarbone up. Um, and especially when it comes to hair, this is something that, weirdly enough, a lot of people don't know, but like being able to see the top of your head, so that includes your hair, is something that is super important while being on a Zoom. It kind of gives this presentation of what you really look like, or what you would look like to somebody else. Obviously, somebody else would be able to see your full body in person, but in a Zoom, this is like the perfect framing for when you're attending a Zoom meeting. Another thing is that talking with our hands has kind of gone out the door. I've actually been doing it this whole time, and I know you've seen glimpses of my hands, but um, something that we also lost from in person that is different on Zoom is expressing ourselves via our body. A lot of it is now on face uh, facial movements. Um, so One way to kind of battle like that is to be extremely expressive in your face. So I know a lot of the time, especially when we're in class, a lot of us are just kind of like listening, and we have a very like blank face on. It's great to, when you're reacting to something, even if you're just like, like you're thinking like, wow, like to like open your eyes like that. That's something that not only helps like you to like, it's like another physical reminder to yourself that like, oh yeah, like this is something that's really interesting. Like it also helps the person who's the host where see like your reaction. And like, especially for teachers, it's super important for them to be able to um see your reaction to things, because if you think about it, they've always had been able to see our reactions in the classroom. Um, so yeah, those are things just about like your body and your presentation that can be really helpful in Zoom. As far as being a good participant, um, definitely like engaging in the comments and kind of being like, oh, just making little comments here and there about what's going on is always super helpful. as well as um like other than just commenting and being engaging, you can also just like um as like you can raise your hand in Zoom. I'm sure a lot of you guys know how to do that by now, but just in case, at the bottom of your screen, you should see different like mute, stop video, security, participants. And then there's one that says reactions. In reactions, you can raise your hand. There's also these other functions that people don't use as frequently, I've found, in the classroom, which is yes, no, slower, faster. And then there's also like the emoji reactions. All of those are just another way to use Zoom to express yourself. Because remember, we're all in this weird place where, it's hard to get a full experience of a person over video. I see in the comments, I noticed I don't have the raise my hand function. Okay, if you don't see it there, it may be under more depending on the platform you're using. So I'm using a laptop, but if you're using an iPad or an iPhone, it's usually under more, the little like dot 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 icon. Um, and if you don't see it there, then that might be a settings issue. So there's actually a great segue into settings on Zoom. So actually, I am going to open up so you guys can see what the settings look like. They are online, so you sign into your Zoom um, on the web in order to check your settings. So here I'm going to open this up. It's gonna let me. Let's see. Let's see if it lets me in. Okay, cool. Yes, I've been let in. Okay. I'm gonna share my screen so you guys can see what's going on. Okay, so here is my Zoom platform. Whoa. Okay, so it always starts you on the meetings page. It just shows you where upcoming meetings are. You can look at your previous meetings. You go to your personal room, which is a way to very quickly make a Zoom meeting. So if you're just trying to hang out with friends, opening Zoom, starting a meeting, usually you're using the personal room. So I'm going to go to settings. And this is where actually a lot of things on Zoom, or a lot of the functions of Zoom are actually. So okay, so we're in the settings, we're in the meeting settings. As you can see, there's like the waiting room options. So these are the settings for if you're hosting. There's the waiting room options that you can put people in a waiting room when they enter your meetings. Having a passcode, that's required now. Here's the personal meeting ID. This is the way to get into your personal room. Requiring passcodes for joining by phone. Again, that's something that can't be changed. Embedded passcode. This is one that's actually really important. So in order to log on to a Zoom just through a link, when you make a Zoom meeting, you are given a link with an embedded passcode. That way the person does not have to go find the password. And it's really helpful to kind of streamline things and to also put like into a calendar. You can just put the link knowing that it will take you directly to the Zoom meeting. So then authenticated users, I have never used this. This is more for like a corporation that, like, for example, like, how Sometimes you'll see on the news that there's people meeting via Zoom or they're meeting via Skype. That's more for this kind of setting. So you don't really need to use that setting. Approval block entry from certain and specific countries and regions. If you're doing a big event where, um, you know, like someone might just find the Zoom login and just want to join, here's where you can block it by region. Again, something that I don't use. Allow use of end-to-end encryption. I mean, this is a good safety one. I guess like mine is not activated. But like this is for like again, more for a not a personal user, but a corporation where you're using end-to-end encryption just for the safety of the people in the meeting. Okay, so then here is where you can have here's the settings for when you're scheduling a meeting. These are so that whenever you schedule a meeting, these settings will apply. So host video, if you want your video to automatically come on when you make a meeting, here's where you could like put that setting. Participant video, same thing. If you want the participants' videos to be automatically on when they join, here's where you would turn it on. Audio type is computer audio. I don't think there's any other options for that. Allow participants to join before host. This is for if you're gonna like the person's logging on and you're not there, they can join before you. Personal meeting ID. This, I believe, is automatically on every time, but it's basically access to your personal Zoom room. This is so I'm using the personal meeting ID when starting an instant meeting and scheduling a meeting. Basically, instead of getting a specific link or a new link, it will always use your personal meeting ID. So all of your Zooms will be on the same meeting technically. But it's really good for if things are recurring and you don't want to send out a new link out every time, or if you just kind of need a quick meeting, you can just kind of open it up. Muting all participants when they join a meeting. This is something that's super important if you're hosting, especially a big meeting. Muting everybody is going to save you a lot of time. As you guys know, it can get really crazy when there's a lot of people and people are unmuted. It's just a lot of like background noise and stuff. So this is one way to stop that. Of course, people will still possibly turn on their sound, but this is like a way where it's like they have to actively turn on their sound. Upcoming meeting reminder. This is something for yourself personally where you'll get a pop-up that says like, hey, your meeting is coming up tomorrow. And it'll just like remind you about it. Okay, so an in meeting. So here are the ones that exist. So it says in meeting basic because here are the basic in meeting settings. Okay, so require encryption for third-party entry points. Again, encryption is something you can use for security. But again, like it's more for a larger corporation to like require encryption. So I'm not someone who specifically went out of my way to have encryption. Okay, chat messages. So chat is usually on. Sometimes it's not for webinars where they don't want people to participate via the chat. Allow participants to chat with everyone. So for example, this is something that I'm sure you've seen in your classes where you can only chat with your teacher. So here is where you can say they can't chat with anyone. They can only chat to the host. They can chat with everyone generally or everyone, and like also directly message people. So a lot of times, I've seen at least in classes that for the most part, the directly chatting with anyone is usually turned off. I've seen it turned on before, but usually it's off. And then allowing users to save chats from the meeting. This is another big one. A lot of people don't know this, or maybe they've started to figure it out since we've been on Zoom for so long. But yes, the host can see all chats by saving their chats. So when you have a direct message going back and forth, the host can see it. Like the host will absolutely see if you're saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm so bored." They can see that if they decide to save their chat. So just beware that, don't, I wouldn't say anything that you don't want the host to see in a chat. And so here is where you can allow people to save the chat so everyone can save it, or just the host can save it. Private chat, this is what I was just talking about people sending direct messages to one another. Again, the host can see those. Auto saving chats, I'm sure that a lot of teachers have used this one. This one is where it basically, without you even having to remember to save the chat, it automatically saves from each meeting. So that's how you do that. Notifications when someone joins or leaves. That's just that little noise that I'm sure you guys heard on my end from before, where it goes dun dun. And that's saying that someone's joined the meeting. And then send files via meeting chat. This is another one that I've actually seen used heavily in classes, where if we're referring to a specific document that somebody made, they can actually send the document in the chat and then everybody can open it. It's also great for if you're doing more of like shared activity where you want everybody to be looking at the same thing at the same time. If they don't have a link ahead of time, this is where you could actually like paste the document into the Zoom so that everybody can see them. Feedback to Zoom. Again, that's just like it's for Zoom to improve so they can send a report to Zoom at the end of a meeting. Display the end of meeting experience feedback survey. This is actually one that I don't see used very often, but I think it would actually be really helpful. Which is basically when somebody ends the meeting, it asks, "Was it a good meeting? Yes or no?" And that's kind of something that would be good for understanding like what kind of events people like, and understanding what like how people felt about the meeting. I think that'd be great in education. I'm not sure how many teachers are aware of it, but that would be something that's like great to put in. Always show meeting control bar. So the control bar is that part on the bottom where it says mute, stop video, all that kind of stuff. So if you're sharing your screen, it usually disappears. If you turn this on, you'll be able to see it all the time. So if you're doing a lot of sharing of media and you have a hard time picking it back up, this would be a great thing to enable. Show Zoom windows during screen share. So this is basically you can have the Zoom open while you're screen sharing. I know a lot of teachers do this so that they can see students raise their hand and see the chat and everything while they're sharing. So yeah, that's basically just to keep it open. Screen sharing. Okay, so this is one that I know we've all come across and had issues with about screen sharing. So first off, this is for the host settings. So the host has to turn on screen sharing. So as you can see here, mine is enabled where only the host can screen share. And then like who can share while someone else is sharing. This one's another big one that I see has some issues when in the classroom function, which is that sometimes it only says host, which means that when students are, for example, like I've seen as a TA, students sharing work and one student can't close their window and another student needs to share. This is a place where if you had all participants checked off, you could say that all participants have the opportunity to basically take over the screen sharing. And then, of course, if you didn't want people just randomly screen sharing, you could put host only. Disable desktop screen share for meetings that you host. So this is so if I'm screen sharing, there's not an option to screen share my entire screen. It's only a window. So I'd have to pick a window to share. Um, I personally like doing the full desktop screen share. So I always keep it disabled because um, I will like sometimes use the full desktop to show something. Um, Annotation tools and add information to shared screen. This I doubt you're gonna use. Um, but you can annotate your screen. I'm currently not in the setting where I could do it, but I will show you guys after I finish going through the settings exactly what that looks like. Whiteboard, another one that I will show you after I finish with the settings. Remote control. During a screen share, the person who is sharing can allow others to control the share content. This is basically like if you ever had someone remote into your computer, um, where you want someone to be able to take over, this would be it. Where basically I share my screen, but somebody else can go and use the mouse to click on different things. Nonverbal feedback. This is the um, reactions that are yes, no, slow down, speed up. Um, they're usually automatically enabled on CUNY Zooms. So they're always there if you log onto a CUNY Zoom. But this is again something that you can change for yourself. Here are the meeting reactions, the emojis. You can use all emojis or just selected emojis. Let's see, allow remove participants to rejoin. So sometimes you have to remove somebody from a Zoom meeting. If you don't want them to join back, here's where you could turn that off. Allow participants to rename themselves. This is actually something that I've seen a lot with hosting a meeting where someone, for example, like logs on to, let's say, like logs onto a Zoom through somebody else's account. This is where it would be helpful to turn on the rename themselves so that if I'm logging in through, for example, which I've done before as a teaching assistant, if I'm logging into a Zoom from the teacher's Zoom ID, this is where I'd be able to rename myself so that it says my name instead of the teacher's name. High participant profile pictures in a meeting. As you can see, we have actually like a lot of people here have profile pictures. So this would basically turn it off. And this, yeah, so that would just turn off the profile pictures. Here are the advanced stuff. Reporting to Zoom if there's weird behavior. Breakout rooms. We all have experienced a breakout room, I'm pretty sure. Remote support. This is like, again, if I wanted to specifically go one-on-one on someone else's computer, here's where I would do it. Closed captioning, great thing to have while hosting a meeting, especially for those who need closed captioning. Although, of course, it's I think you can make it auto generated. Here it's not talking about it, but I think it can be auto generated. I'm not actually sure how to do that. But in this one, someone needs to type in the closed captioning. So someone's actually typing in what's being said. And then saving captions, far end camera control. This would be so that someone could like use your camera, like basically be in charge of your camera. This is something that I've seen used in webinars where people have multiple cameras. This is where someone else could control the cameras. Virtual background. This is a good function to know. I will say that, I've seen a lot of people use virtual backgrounds. They can sometimes be super distracting. So like, for example, allow use of videos as virtual backgrounds. That's something that I probably wouldn't enable if I was hosting a big event. And then on top of that, the virtual background, like, everybody knows if you're using a virtual background. Sometimes they're like super like subtle, like where it's just like a photo, a still photo. But if you have like, for example, like the grass virtual background, like obviously we all know that like it stands out a little bit. So like for when picking a virtual background, I would say just stick with something that is not like overstated. Video filters. I'm sure you guys all know what these are. I think of them as Snapchat filters for Zoom. I don't think I've seen anybody. No, I've seen people use them before, but not often used. Um, okay, the immersive view. Um, I never used this, but I'm pretty sure it's basically just like you can choose to have like a very specific um like background. I think that they're actually sometimes even interact like you can even interact with them. I haven't seen this used in a Zoom meeting yet. I'm sure people will get more into it if we continue to have like Zoom meetings so often. I've never used it. It's very advanced, something that I don't know how to use. Um, yeah. Okay. Identify guest participants in the meeting webinar. So basically, this will tell you people who, for example, did not sign up for the meeting or people who did not sign up for the webinar and who's there. And then auto answers to group chat. This is basically if you're like, uh, it's it's basically, I'm trying to think of like the best description for it, but it's basically like you get an automatic answer. It's kind of like when you reach out to a chat bot and it's like, someone is working on this and we'll talk to you within the next 24 hours or something. Show default email. This one's another good one for if you are using your personal Zoom, but you would like to like show a different email address when sending it. Here's where you could enable it. HTML format email. I'm going to ignore that. It's basically just another way of sending out a invitation. A lot of these what we're getting through are definitely like getting into some more like nitty gritty that are like really not like you don't really use them. Request permission to unmute. This is a great one in webinars or really big events because unmuting in a big event, as we talked about already, is definitely like can be a disaster. Here would be a great solution where it's like if someone wants to unmute and say something, you can actually like allow them to unmute versus letting them just talk. This will like save, especially if you're um like opening up the floor. This will help like stop multiple people talking at once. Yeah, and then rest of the stuff is like regular stuff. So I'm gonna stop share for that. And then I'm actually gonna show you guys about sharing the screen or sharing audio, which is something that I know we've all gone through. Firstly, I suggest to share your screen. I would go into a private meeting and try to share your screen from there first before you try to share your screen in the future for a class, anything. Go to share, like basically open it up as if you're going to share something because there are different settings that you need to configure in order to share your screen. They're all very self-explanatory once you actually get there, but it will open up the settings if you've never shared before. And that will, like, for example, in class, I've seen it many times where people have to actually log out of the meeting and log back in because in order to save the settings, you have to restart the Zoom application. So trying to share your screen before actually sharing it is great. Definitely try it on your own. And then for platforms like the iPad and the iPhone, it's not as big of a deal because the configuration will literally be a pop-up that's like allow Zoom to have access to your photos or allow Zoom to share your screen. So those ones aren't a big deal when it comes to screen sharing. Okay, so I'm actually going to share my screen to show you some screen sharing stuff. Okay, so this is what pops up when you're asked to share your screen. As you can see, there are three different like styles of sharing your screen. There's basic, advanced, and files. They all do different things. This is actually going to be really important depending on your classes and what you're trying to share. So whiteboard. This is actually where you would be able to create a whiteboard that you could share the screen to. So clicking on this will open up essentially a whiteboard. And this is like something that I haven't seen used in classes, but may actually be really helpful for teachers, especially for students that like myself, I like to see things written out so I can kind of like process them and like keep looking at them and like remind myself. And then over here, so this is the only one I have open at the moment, or when I took the screenshot. But this was the other window that I had open that I could share. So whatever windows are open on your computer will auto generate here all of the different ones. So you'll be able to see like, okay, if you had Google Chrome open, there'd be a little box for Google Chrome. If you had messages open, it would tell you like, here are your messages, all kinds of stuff. So basically this is where you can select, instead of having to show your entire desktop, you could share just one window. So like, for example, I've taken a lot of film classes. This would be a great place to share the film just through the window versus having to uh, open up the whole desktop and then have your screen full screen for the entire film, because then you are unable to like take notes or anything. So that would be a great place where you could kind of just keep it in a corner in a small box um and do it. So then these settings down here are super important. I'm sure if you've ever tried to share your screen in a class, you've come into contact with these settings. So share sound. This is to share the sound on your computer. And if you're opening a video or anything like that, you have to share the sound or else nobody can hear what's happening on your computer. So you'll just show the video with no audio. Optimize for video clip, another really great one. This one's really, really great actually if you're sharing YouTube video clips, because basically what happens is it optimizes it so you can see the full clip. You know how if you're opening YouTube on a browser, it has like on top, it has like YouTube, and then underneath it has like comments and like suggested videos. Optimizing for a video clip is going to, when you open it, it's going to help to get rid of the other things that are on the page, as well as prepare your computer for streaming a video over the internet. So like like if you don't click this, basically it'll be super choppy of a video when you're sharing it. And it may like have like pauses or skips and stuff like that. So optimizing it for a video clip is going to be great. So then I'm actually going to share the advanced settings. So advanced settings. This is where you can do some more advanced stuff, obviously. Slides as a virtual background. This is brand new, did not used to exist on Zoom, but this is great as far as education on Zoom goes. Basically, instead of seeing what's actually behind me in person, you would see me and then you would see whatever presentation I had going on. This again would be a thing about framing, so it's a little bit more complicated because you're then going to have to, put yourself in the bottom right corner, or like shift the way you're sitting in order to have the slide be be visible. So yeah, that's that. Music or computer sound only. This is how at the beginning and the top of this meeting, I was playing music without sharing my screen. Yeah, this is actually a really great setting, especially for if you're hosting any sort of where you'd like to have music happening or like any sort of just like having like clear audio, because you can't, what you could do is open up Spotify and just blast it unmuted, but it sounds terrible. um so here's how you could do it without it sounding so bad. Content from a second camera, I mentioned this a little bit with webinars. But basically, if you have an extra camera, or if you're, for example, if you're doing for example, this gets used a lot in live streams that people do via Zoom. This is a way to show off another, either more angles of a person, or if you had a second camera that was like as it shows here, facing down to a desk, you could show people, for example, like what you're writing, or show people something that you're doing with your hands that you can't see, um, without either aiming down your camera a lot, or being able to just show something different. So like you could really show anything with a second camera as long as it's hooked up to your computer. um but yeah, this is used a lot in webinars, and if you really want to elevate your webinar and you're trying to show something that is different, this would be a great way to do it. Okay, so then I'm going to share for files. Okay. So then this is what it looks like for under the files tab. This is a little bit more complicated. It's easy to do once you get the hang of it, but it definitely it requires a little bit more setup. Basically, here are a bunch of online like places where you could host files. You're gonna have to sign in. So if you're planning on using files from any of these places, make sure that you sign in first, so that you don't have to like, you're not like frantically trying to sign in while you're trying to show something. And yeah, and so they will need to be linked. So basically, if you're sharing in this way, it's fine, but it will take um, a little bit of extra effort. So yeah, so that's how you share. Again, this just to like, I guess, harp on this topic, but the share sound button, these little buttons, I don't know why they're so small, the share sound and optimize for video clip, because they're very important. So just always like keep in mind, because I'm pretty sure, at least in my experience, they reset every single time. Like, for example, they won't automatically click share sound. So you have to click it every single time you share your screen. So just think about that when you're sharing your screen. Do I need people to hear the sound? Am I sharing a video clip? These are things that just like remind yourself to look down here before you share your screen. Yeah, okay. And now I'm going to kind of turn over to questions. Let me quickly first look at a comment in the chat. If I'm sharing sound, do I have to stay unmuted or can I mute? Yes, you can mute or unmute. As long as you click that little box, share sound, that will be sharing the sound from your computer. So you can mute yourself so that no one hears you like talking to yourself or something while you're playing a video clip. So that's one way where if you click share sound, it'll only share the sound coming from your computer, and it won't share you whatever is happening um, outside of the computer. So yes, so you can also, that's like a way where you can play music, for example, from your computer and also talk at the same time. Like you can do either of those. So yeah, so I'm going to turn it over to questions for those who have questions. I'd also like to bring up that I work in social media. So if you have social media questions, I'm also open to those. Yeah, so I'm going to open up the questions. Type your questions in the chat. Yeah. Also, this is a great time to mention, do not be afraid of the awkward silence on Zoom. It's Zoom. Like, there's going to be awkward silence. It's just not the same as in person, where people can react immediately if they're typing things out, or if they're thinking of an answer. So there's a lot of definitely like quiet parts of Zoom, and don't feel like it's awkward because it's just how it's the fastest way to react as a person online. So yeah, so let me know if you guys have any questions. If there are no questions, then I guess I can wrap up. So I'm gonna give you guys 2 minutes to ask questions. What's your Instagram? My Instagram, I'm going to type it in the chat. My Instagram is Ivy the Spooky Kid. This is in the chat. On my Instagram, I don't, not the best. On my personal Instagram, I'm not the greatest at keeping up social media appearances, but I do it more in a professional setting, so I don't really have time to keep up my own one. But yeah, that's where I am. How can we enable a Zoom waiting room? That is something that you can do in the settings. So that will be something that you would have to decide before a meeting, when you're scheduling a meeting. So that was on the online Zoom platform under settings. That's where you can turn on a Zoom waiting room or turn off a Zoom waiting room. I'm thinking of building my Instagram for being an influencer. Do you have any advice for that? My advice as far as influencing on Instagram, the biggest advice I can give you is that it's not very simple to just like, it's not the easiest to become an influencer on Instagram unless you are one of those people that just gets lucky and goes viral. But if you are looking to become an influencer, a great way to do it is to really focus on constant posting and also using hashtags. I know it seems like hashtags, like who uses hashtags is 2021. Hashtags are surprisingly a great way to like have people find your content. If you already have a following, hashtags are going to be giant for you. I actually manage the Instagram account of a voice actress, and hashtags are where, at least for her account, where I live in. Basically, I go through the hashtags. Always in hashtags, interact with posts that are interesting to you or are anyway similar to yours, even if that means just like leaving a comment that's like nice or leaving a little emoji. Another thing is liking other people's photos. I know a lot of people are very anti like liking people's photos. It feels almost like you're losing a sense of power by liking other people's photos. Like people's photos. People will follow you just for liking a few of their posts. I wouldn't go crazy with liking people's stuff. Like, don't spam someone. Don't spam someone with likes. Maybe leaving 3 likes on someone's profile. It'll get them to at least take a look at what you're doing, and to like, look up like who you are. So definitely interact with posts when you're liking. Interact with posts that have anything to do with what you're doing. So that when they click on your profile, they're like, oh, this person also does, like, for example, like if you were like skiing, they'd be like, oh, this person also skis. Like, that's really interesting. So definitely interact with stuff that is content similar to the content you post. Let's see. Quality photos. Yes, high definition photos are a big thing because on Instagram, it already takes down a lot of the quality of the photos just by posting onto Instagram. And then, yes, trends, super important. I also like to kind of just, as far as building yourself up, like, you need to have a brand. Definitely, like, if you're wanting to become an influencer, you need to like consciously make a list of like, here are the things I want to focus on as an influencer. Here are things that are outside of the boundaries of what I want to post, because that way it's easier to actually have like consistent content. So for example, if you wanted to become like one of those uh like someone who makes like a lot of educational videos, then your content for the most part is going to be educational, and you need to kind of decide that at the beginning. And it doesn't mean you can't post other things, but it means that usually a lot of your posts need to have some sort of educational piece to them so that people aren't confused when you're like, oh, like here's me at a restaurant. It feels like it doesn't make sense with the rest of the account. So definitely like consciously go through and be like, here are the things I want to focus on. Here's what I want people to see when they click on my profile. Here's my aesthetic. Like you really do need to like plan this kind of stuff out. It'll also help you to like know what hashtags to check in on and stuff like that. So let me see what else is in here. Yes, everyone wants to influence. It also, as far as like, if you're really thinking about like kind of like paid influencer stuff, know that that will not come without a couple like, okay, so for like paid influencing, there is paid influencing that starts out at like 10K. Um, you're way less likely to get something if you're at 10K followers. Um, if you want to get paid for influencing, you have to have a pretty good audience and with good engagement. Like you need people who are engaging with your content. These are the kind of stats that people are going to ask for if they want you, for example, to be a brand ambassador or they want you to post paid content. Um, all of those things are definitely like, if you want to get paid for the content you're posting and you want to get paid to put up a series of Instagram videos, stuff like that, you got to be pretty much in the 100,000 voter range. I mean, follower range to really get like people to pay to post on your page. A lot of times people will try to like ask you like, oh, I'll give you uh a promotional link and you get commission for however many people buy from our site. Those things are super sketchy. Do not do those. um Unless you're getting paid outside of that. Like when people say they'll give a commission but they're not paying you, that just means that they basically want you to make people buy stuff from their website and you're not gonna get paid very well. Another thing is that if you really are serious about influencing, do not accept just product. Do not accept just product. I know it feels like, to, you see a lot of people that are like, oh my God, I just got these new shoes, like from Nike. And, I love them, stuff like that, trying to, um, like when they're influencing, they get paid to do that as well as the product. Like, do not just settle for products. A lot of people will try to because it's cheaper for them just to kind of give you products and not pay you. Don't do that if you're really serious about influencing because then you'll never get paid. Like people will know that you didn't get paid for different posts and stuff. And yeah, exactly. Don't ever do anything for free. Um, because it will really lower it'll lower the quality of your account, especially to people who may be looking to um, sponsor you and stuff like that in the future. Um, Another thing is that if you want to be an influencer and you don't really have anything specific that you're like, anything specific that you're trying to influence for, a great way to do it is to try to just like go into your passions. You can be an influencer for like literally anything. So like for example, like I wouldn't describe myself as an influencer because that's not what I'm specifically trying to do with my social media. But if I was to be an influencer, I would definitely do a lot around um like voting. Because I speak publicly about voting. I work in a lot of voting organizations. So like that would be what I would be an influencer for, is like getting people registered to vote and stuff like that. So that's why you definitely need to like write these things out and like seriously plan them out. I know it seems like overkill to try to like write out all these things you want for your Instagram, but it'll make a huge difference. And like knowing what to focus on, like even like for the social media accounts that I manage, there is a method to it. Like it's like, you're not just like posting random things that you feel like posting. There's a method to how it gets posted, to at what frequency it gets posted. You don't want to just keep posting like the same thing over and over and over again. Like people don't want to see that. You'll just look like a compilation account versus like trying to actually like be an influencer. So yeah, these are things that you should really plan out. And like, I know as a social media manager, I usually schedule out posts a week in advance. Um, Another thing is jumping on trends such as like Happy National Dog Day and taking a picture with your dog. These are kind of things that like you should plan out in advance. So then like, okay, on this date is National Dog Day. So I'm going to make a post with my dog. Like, kind of just knowing that that's there. Another thing is scheduling out posts makes such a big difference because you can see what's coming versus just like posting things. It helps to stop your account from just looking like very flat. Like it makes your account look more like intentional. So definitely like scheduling things out. Let's see. When it comes to speaking, I tend to speak very low. Would you recommend people raise their voice a little when they're on Zoom, or speaking at normal tone? Good. Um, I would definitely say on Zoom, exaggerate. You're gonna have to speak louder. Like right now, this is not the way I'm speaking is not the way I would like speak if I was in person. I'm definitely speaking at a higher volume, and for tone, again, that's something where you have to be super expressive with your face because the you don't have the physical part to go along with um the way you're talking. So definitely just being super expressive in the face, smiling, doing things like, for example, like as I'm sure you can see, like got my eyebrows raised and like, I was basically showing that I'm like engaged. Um so yeah, so definitely speak a higher volume when you're on Zoom, because it will come out as mumbling because remember it's online, it gets mumbly. And then on top of that, with tone, make sure that you're being super intentional with your tone. If you're on Zoom and you're kind of just like, yeah, like I blah 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 blah. It sounds like you're mad, even if you're not. You know what I mean? Like it comes across differently. So definitely like exaggerate tone on Zoom so that people can really understand where you're coming from and like, um, yeah. So that's definitely what I would say regarding tone. Okay, what platform do you use to schedule posts? I use a few different ones. I've used Hootsuite. I've used Sprout Social. There's one that I can't remember. The best one in my experience has been Sprout Social. It's not cheap, but it actually allows you to like post like any sort of content. Because, for example, like on a Hootsuite, it's extremely difficult to post video. There's like a lot of um, restrictions there on Hootsuite. Um, on Sprout Social, you can also like, for example, on Twitter, you can post a GIF. It gives you a lot more like, basically via Sprout Social, you can make a lot of different changes, as well as something that unlike Hootsuite or different scheduling platforms, or like Later, for example, Sprout Social will tell you at what times you have the best engagement if you're scheduling out posts. So that's something that's like, oh, that's great. Like it actually just, it's like a cheat sheet. It'll just be like post at 2:47 because that's when most people are looking at your profile on Monday. Um, so yeah, I personally am huge into Sprout Social. Yeah, so I'm going to wrap it up unless there are any last minute questions. Thank you all for being in this Zoom. Also, like, let me know in the comments if you would like me to go through, like, or like maybe hold an event regarding social media, because I feel like that's one that people would really like. And I can kind of go through all of the tips and tricks. Like I can show you how to make a post from scratch, basically all of my inside all of my inside tips. I'd love to share, especially with young women. So yeah. So awesome. I see a lot of people are super interested in that. So yeah, so I am going to see what I can do there. But yeah, like I've had a wonderful time. Thank you guys so much for having me. Um, and yeah, have a great rest of your day.